Welcome to TB Dahl Audiobooks. Before the story begins, please take a quick second to subscribe and leave a comment below. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now, enjoy the listen.
They have documents, Riley said. Henrik's letter says the records were split. Sealed adoption papers, original birth certificates, correspondence. Some of it is with the families. You told us that yourself. I told you the Northern Table distributed evidence across multiple custodians to prevent any single point of failure. Katerina's voice carried the clipped precision of someone who had rehearsed these explanations for decades. Your adoptive parents were not custodians in the organizational sense. They were given fragments, enough to maintain the legal fiction, not enough to reconstruct the full picture. Fragments are what we need, Elliot said from the window. He didn't turn around. You've given us context. Henrik's letter gave us a framework. But the only people who can confirm our birth names, our adoption records, and whether they knew about each other, about us, are the people who signed the papers. Katerina looked at Riley, then at Elliot's back. Something moved behind her eyes. Not resistance. Recognition. If you contact them and the surveillance network has already identified your family connections, you draw them into the operational space. They become targets. Leverage. They're already in it, Riley said. They've been in it since they agreed to raise children under false names. The difference is that now we're asking, instead of strangers deciding for us. Silence. The rain thickened against the glass. I am done learning the truth from people I've never met, Riley said. From dead men's letters and photographs of infants I can't remember being. I need to hear it from my mother. I need to hear it from my father. And I need them to say it to my face. Katerina studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded once. How do you intend to reach them without exposing this location? Riley had already thought about it. She pulled one of the prepaid phones from the emergency bag Katerina had brought from the Frogner flat. I'll call Tara. She can deliver a message to my mother in person. No phones, no email, no text trail. Tara knows my mother. She's been to dinner at my parents' house. She can walk in without raising suspicion. And mine? Elliot turned from the window. Same method, different route. Riley looked at him. Do your parents know Tara? No. Then we need another way. Elliot thought for a moment. My mother shops at the ICA on Ulandsgate every Thursday morning. I can write a note. Tara doesn't need to deliver it personally. She drops it in my mother's shopping bag or hands it to the cashier she always uses. Something simple. A meeting time, a location. No names. That's a lot of trust to put in a grocery store employee. It's a lot of trust to put in anyone. Elliot's jaw tightened. But that's where we are. Riley picked up the phone. I'll call Tara now. We set the meetings for tomorrow. Separate locations, staggered times. If one goes wrong, the other still has a chance. Katerina rose from the table. She gathered the documents, the letter, and the photograph of the two infants, and placed them carefully back inside her leather case. I will not come with you, she said. My face is known to the organization. If the opportunists have shared photographs with Volkov's people, my presence at a family meeting creates a connection that cannot be undone. She paused in the doorway. But I will tell you something before you go. She turned back. Your parents will be afraid. Not of you. Of what they will have to admit. They have carried this for 27 years, and most of that time, they convinced themselves the silence was kindness. Do not mistake their fear for guilt, and do not mistake their guilt for indifference. She left the kitchen. Her footsteps creaked on the old floorboards and faded into the back bedroom. Riley looked at Elliot. You ready for this? He pulled out a chair and sat down across from her for the first time since they'd arrived at the safe house. "No," he said. "But that's not the question." Riley called Tara at 6:14 a.m. from the prepaid phone. Tara answered on the second ring, her voice rough with sleep, but immediately alert. "It's me," Riley said. "Don't say my name." A pause. Sheets rustling. "Okay. I need you to do something. In person. Today. No phones after this call." "Tell me." Riley explained. Tara would visit Marianne Hunt at the family home on Big Doy Alley. She would say Riley needed to see both parents urgently, in private, at a location Riley would specify. No phones. No discussion with anyone else. If Marianne asked why, Tara would say only that Riley was safe, but the situation had changed. "What situation?" Tara's voice sharpened. "Riley, what is happening?" "The news said police are looking for 2 witnesses in connection with that museum." "I know what the news said. That's part of why I need to do this. Can you go to my mother's house this morning?" Silence. Then, "Yes." "There's a second thing." Riley described the note for Ingrid Harper. A folded piece of paper with a time, a location, and nothing else. Tara would not deliver it herself. She would leave it at a specific place at a specific time. Riley gave precise instructions. "Who is this for?" Tara asked. "Someone I need to speak with." "You're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. I'll explain everything when I can. But right now, I need you to trust me the way I've trusted you." Another pause. Longer this time. "Okay," Tara said. "I'll go this morning. What do I tell your mother about where to meet?" Riley gave her the address of a small hotel on Holmenkollen she'd found in one of Henrik's notebooks, a place the safe house documents listed as a secondary meeting point, separate from the main Honest Russia network. A tea room on the second floor, open but quiet on weekday afternoons. 2:00 tomorrow, Riley said. "Both of them. Tell my mother it's not optional." "Riley, thank you, Tara." She ended the call. Elliot was already writing the note for his parents on a scrap of paper from the emergency supplies. A time, an address, a different cafe, 20 minutes from the hotel, and 2 words in his own handwriting that only his mother would recognize. "Ver trygg." Be safe. The phrase Ingrid had said to him every morning before school, every evening before bed, every time he'd left for a training exercise or deployment. 2 words so ordinary he'd never thought to question why she said them with such intensity. He folded the paper twice and handed it to Riley. "Same day, 3:30. That gives us time to get from one meeting to the other." Riley took the note. Their fingers brushed. Neither remarked on it. "What if they don't come?" she asked. Elliot looked at the rain on the window. "They'll come." The hotel sat partway up the Holmenkollen Ridge, set back from the road behind a screen of old oaks. It was the kind of place that survived on business conferences and cross-country skiing tourists. Solid, unremarkable, with thick curtains and the faint mineral smell of radiator heat. The tea room on the second floor held 8 tables, most of them empty at 2 in the afternoon. A woman in a black apron arranged cups behind a service counter. Classical music played at the edge of hearing. Riley arrived first. She chose a corner table with sightlines to both the door and the window overlooking the car park below. She wore clothes from the safe house supplies, a dark sweater, plain trousers, a jacket she'd never owned before. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup. She looked, she thought, like someone who'd been sleeping in a stranger's house, which was exactly what she was. Elliot had driven her down from the forest in the gray Volvo and dropped her 2 blocks away. He would circle for 20 minutes, park in a side street, and wait. If Riley didn't emerge by 3 o'clock, he would enter through the hotel's service entrance. They'd mapped it the previous evening using satellite imagery on one of the emergency laptops Katerina had provided. Riley ordered tea she didn't want, set the cup between her hands, waited. At 2:07, the door to the tea room opened, and Marianne Hunt walked in. Riley's mother looked the way she always looked, composed, neatly dressed, her light brown hair touched with gray and smoothed behind her ears. She wore a camel coat, a silk scarf in muted blue, and low-heeled boots. The kind of outfit that projected calm and education and control. But her face was wrong. The composure was a shell stretched too thin. Her eyes found Riley's across the room, and something fractured behind them. Relief and terror, and a grief so deep it had no name. Marianne crossed the room. She didn't sit. She stood at the edge of the table and looked at Riley as though memorizing her. "You're safe," Marianne said. The words came out as air more than sound. "Sit down, Mom." Marianne sat. She placed her handbag on the empty chair beside her with the mechanical precision of a woman who needed her hands to do something familiar. "Where's Dad?" "Parking. He'll be up in a moment." Marianne's fingers traced the edge of the tablecloth. "Tara came to the house yesterday morning. She said you needed to see us. She said the situation had changed." A pause. "She looked frightened, Riley. She has reason to be." The door opened again. Eric Hunt entered the tea room with the deliberate stride of a man accustomed to reading a room before crossing it. Tall, lean, gray-haired, wearing a dark wool overcoat over a pressed shirt. No tie. His face was controlled in the way Riley had seen 1,000 times before. The courtroom face. The government meeting face. The face that revealed nothing until it chose to. But his eyes went to Riley first, and what she saw there was not composure. It was the careful, practiced stillness of a man who had been expecting this conversation for 27 years and had never stopped dreading it.
Eric sat beside Marianne. He did not reach for Riley's hand. He did not offer pleasantries. He folded his hands on the table and waited. Riley had rehearsed this in the car, in the safe house kitchen, in the dark, staring at the ceiling while Elliot kept watch. She'd considered a dozen approaches, oblique, diplomatic, gradual. The political risk consultant's instinct was to manage the conversation, control the information flow, create off-ramps. She abandoned all of it. "Who is Sophia Anna Nikolaisen?" The name landed on the table between them like a stone dropped into still water. Marianne's breath caught. It was small, a quarter-second hitch in her breathing that she covered immediately, but Riley saw it. Eric did not move. His hands remained folded. His expression remained still. But the stillness itself was a confession. It was the stillness of a man who had prepared for exactly this question. "Where did you hear that name?" Eric asked. His voice was level, professionally level. "Answer my question first." Eric looked at Marianne. Something passed between them, not a signal, not a decision, a shared acknowledgement that the structure they'd built together had just developed a crack that would not stop spreading. "She's you," Marianne said quietly. "That was your name. Before." The words filled the room. The classical music played on. The woman behind the counter arranged cups. The world continued its ordinary business, while Riley's chest compressed around a truth she had already known, but had never heard spoken in her mother's voice. Before what? "Before we adopted you." Marianne's hands were flat on the table now, pressing down as though the surface might tilt.
Before everything was changed, your name, your records, your history.
Tell me what you know.
Riley,
Tell me, Eric spoke. His voice had shifted from professional control into something harder and older. The voice of a man defending a position he no longer believed in, but couldn't yet abandon. You were adopted under protected circumstances when you were 14 months old. The adoption was arranged through a private legal channel. I handled the documentation myself. The records were sealed, and your original identity was replaced with a new legal identity. Riley Hunt. Our daughter.
who arranged it?
A man named Henrik Rask. The name dropped a second stone. Riley watched her father's face for any sign that he understood what had happened to Rask, whether he'd seen the news, whether he'd connected the museum death to the name he'd just spoken. Eric's eyes narrowed. You know that name.
Henrik Rask is dead. He was murdered at the National Museum 5 days ago. Elliot and I found his body.
Marianne pressed her hand to her mouth. Eric went very still, a different stillness from before. This was the stillness of recalculation, of a legal mind processing a new and dangerous variable. You were the witnesses, Eric said. The ones the police mentioned.
Yes.
Riley, you need a lawyer. You need to—
I need the truth, from you, right now, not legal advice.
Eric closed his mouth. For the first time in Riley's memory, her father looked uncertain.
Henrik Rask contacted you before I was adopted, Riley said. He told you my biological parents were in danger. He told you my identity had to be sealed. He told you there was a political dimension you were better off not understanding. And you agreed. You took me, you changed my name, you raised me, and you never told me any of it. We were protecting you, Marianne said. From what? From the people who wanted to find you. What people?
Marianne looked at Eric. He shook his head once, small, involuntary. We weren't told everything, Eric said carefully. Rask was deliberate about that. He said the less we knew about the specific threat, the more convincing our family would appear. We knew your biological parents were in danger because of a connection to Russian émigré politics. We knew your original identity had to be completely replaced. We knew Rask was part of a network that had been protecting people like you for a very long time.
People like me.
Children. Descendants. People whose existence was politically dangerous to someone. Riley's jaw tightened. She could feel the heat climbing behind her eyes and refused to let it reach the surface.
Did you know I had a sibling?
The question hit Marianne harder than any of the others. Her composure broke. Not dramatically. Marianne Hunt did not do dramatic. But completely. Her mouth opened, her eyes filled. She pressed both hands flat against the table as though the room had shifted beneath her.
Yes, she whispered. A brother. We were told there was another child. A boy. Rask said the children had to be placed separately. Different families, different names, different lives. He said connecting you would create a pattern that would make both of you visible. Visible to whom? He didn't say, not specifically. Eric's voice was strained. He used the phrase state-level actors with historical interests. I understood that to mean Russian intelligence, but he never confirmed it directly. Riley felt the anger settle into her chest. Not the hot, reactive anger of surprise, but something colder and more structural. The anger of comprehension. You're a lawyer, she said to Eric. You specialize in international law, protected identities, government advisory work. You understood exactly what that phrase meant. You knew the scale of what you were participating in. Eric met her gaze. Yes. And you chose to keep it from me. I chose to keep you alive. Those are not the same thing. They were at the time. The silence stretched. Rain tapped against the window. A car pulled into the lot below. You taught me to question authority, Riley said. Her voice was low now, controlled. The kind of control that comes not from calm, but from the effort of holding a structure together while it fractures. You taught me to read power, to identify when institutions manipulate language to justify their own interests. You taught me that the most dangerous lie is the one told for someone else's protection. Eric said nothing. And you built my entire life on exactly that kind of lie. Marianne reached across the table. Her fingers stopped an inch from Riley's wrist. We loved you, Marianne said. Every day. Every single day. The lie was never about what we felt. It was about what we were afraid would happen if anyone discovered who you really were. Who am I really? The question hung between them. Sophia Anna Nikolaisen, Marianne said. Born in Oslo in 1999. That's the name on the original birth record, the one we were given. Where is that record? I have a locked drawer in my private legal archive, the office on Drammensveien. It contains the documents Rask gave me when the adoption was finalized. I was instructed to keep them sealed unless the danger returned. He paused. When I saw the news about the museum, I knew the danger had returned. What's in the drawer? Sealed adoption papers. Your original birth record. Partial, not complete. Old correspondence from Henrik Rask. A reference to a designation I never fully understood. He looked at Riley. File 17. Riley closed her eyes. The reference confirmed everything Katerina had told them. Every thread connected. There's something else, Eric said. A note, handwritten. It references another child and uses the phrase, must never be publicly connected. I understood that to mean your sibling. His name is Elliot Harper, Riley said. He's downstairs in a car waiting for me. He's my brother. Marianne's hand went to her mouth again. Eric's composure finally cracked, not into emotion, but into the particular blankness of a man realizing the compartmentalized secret he'd managed for decades had just collapsed into a single, undeniable reality. You've met him, Eric said. We found Henrik Rask's body together. We were both summoned to the museum by identical letters signed HR. We've spent the last 5 days running from people who know more about our lives than we do. HR, Eric repeated. The letters on the correspondence Rask sent me. I always assumed they were his initials. They are. They're also the initials of the organization he belonged to. Honest Russia. Eric stared at her. I need those documents, Dad. Today. Not tomorrow, not after you've consulted someone, not after you've assessed the legal implications. Today. Eric's hands were no longer folded. They rested on the table, palms up, as though he'd forgotten what to do with them. I'll get them, he said. I'll drive to the office now. Copies, Riley said. Leave the originals in the archive. If something happens to us, the originals need to exist.
Eric nodded. The motion was heavy. Marianne had not stopped looking at Riley. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Is he good to you? Your brother?" The question was so unexpected, so purely maternal amid the wreckage of secrets and sealed records, that it pierced Riley's defenses in a way none of the revelations had. "We're figuring it out," Riley said. Marianne nodded. She reached across the table again, and this time her fingers found Riley's wrist and held on. "I'm sorry," Marianne said. "I know that word is not enough, but I need you to know that every time I watched you grow up, every time you asked about your early life and I changed the subject, every single time, I hated what I was doing. I told myself it was temporary, that one day the danger would pass and I could tell you everything." Her grip tightened. The danger never passed. Riley looked at her mother's hand on her wrist, the familiar fingers, the plain wedding band, the small scar on the knuckle from a kitchen accident when Riley was 12. "I believe you loved me," Riley said. "I believe you were afraid. But you had 27 years to find a way to tell me the truth, and you chose silence every single time. I need to sit with that." She withdrew her hand, gently, but completely. "I need to go," Riley said. "Eric will bring the documents to the same address Tara gave you. Leave them with the front desk in a sealed envelope marked for room 214. Don't come inside. Don't wait." She stood. Marianne stood with her, and for a moment they faced each other across the table where Riley's entire history had just been dismantled and confirmed in the same conversation. "Be careful," Marianne said. Riley picked up her jacket. "I learned that from you." She left the tea room without looking back. The cafe Elliot had chosen for his parents sat on a residential street in Holmenkollen, 3 blocks from the hotel. Small, wood-paneled, with a counter serving filter coffee and open-faced sandwiches. The kind of place where retired couples read Aftenposten and students studied for exams. Quiet enough for a conversation no one would overhear. Ordinary enough that no one would remember it. Elliot arrived at 3:15 and took a table near the back wall, facing the door. He ordered black coffee and did not drink it. The cup sat on the table, untouched, steam curling toward the low ceiling. His mother walked in at 3:28. Ingrid Harper looked smaller than he remembered. Not physically. She'd always been medium height, slim, practically built. But something in the way she carried herself had contracted. She wore a gray coat buttoned to the collar and a wool scarf Elliot recognized from his childhood. Her hair was pulled back, more gray than blonde now. Her eyes found him immediately, and what he saw in them was not surprise. It was the look of a woman who had been expecting this for a very long time. She crossed to the table, sat down, placed her hands in her lap. "You got my note," Elliot said. "I got your note." Her voice was measured, careful. The voice she'd used when he was young and something had gone wrong. Not panicked, but present. "Your father is parking." "You brought him." "You asked me to come. He wouldn't let me come alone. Not after—" She stopped. "Not after the news." "The museum." Ingrid nodded. "We saw the report. 2 witnesses. They didn't release names, but your father, Thomas, said he had a feeling. He checked your flat. You weren't there. He called your site.
They said you hadn't been in since Wednesday. The door opened. Thomas Harper ducked through the low frame, his broad shoulders filling the entrance. At 62, Elliot's father still moved like an engineer on a job site, deliberate, spatial, aware of load-bearing surfaces and structural clearances. His gray-brown hair was uncombed. His blue eyes swept the cafe with the same instinct Elliot recognized in himself. Exits, sightlines, density. Thomas sat beside Ingrid. He looked at Elliot. The two men shared a silence that was more familiar to both of them than any greeting. "Thanks for coming," Elliot said. "You said 'Vær trygg' on the note." Thomas's voice was flat, a statement, not a question. "I did. Your mother says that to you. She's said it your whole life. I've always thought it was a bit much for a construction engineer living in Oslo." Thomas paused. "Now I'm wondering if she had a reason I didn't understand." Ingrid's hands tightened in her lap. Elliot looked at his mother. "Did you?" Ingrid's mouth opened, closed. She reached for a napkin on the table and folded it once, twice, 3 times. Precise folds, the fabric pressed flat under her fingertips. "Yes," she said. The word was simple. Its weight was not. "Who is Mikael Henrik Nikolaisen?" Elliot asked. Thomas shifted in his chair. The wood creaked under him. His eyes moved from Elliot to Ingrid and back, and Elliot could see the exact moment his father understood that this conversation was going to strip away something load-bearing in all of their lives. Ingrid set down the napkin. Her hands were shaking, not dramatically, but enough that the motion was visible against the dark wood of the table. "That's you," she said. "That was your name, before we gave you ours." Elliot had expected the confirmation. He'd prepared for it. He'd read Henrik's letter, seen the photograph, heard Katarina speak the initials aloud. But hearing it from his mother, from the woman who had packed his school lunches and driven him to football practice and stood in the doorway of his bedroom every night, checking that he was breathing, was different. The truth occupied a different space when it came from her voice. "Tell me everything. Elliot, everything." Ingrid looked at Thomas. He gave a single nod. Permission or surrender? It was hard to tell the difference. "You were adopted when you were 13 months old," Ingrid said. Her voice found its footing, the way it always did when she committed to something. Steady, practical, a nurse delivering difficult information to a patient. "The adoption was arranged through a private channel. A man contacted us, Henrik Rask. He said there was a child who needed a safe home, a child whose biological parents could no longer protect him because of a political situation connected to Russian émigré history." "What exactly did he tell you?" "He was careful about what he said. He told us the child, you, had been born in Norway to Norwegian parents with Russian ancestry. He said the family had attracted attention from people connected to the Russian government. He said the child needed a new identity, a new name, a clean legal background, and a family that could raise him without ever searching for answers." "And you agreed?" "We wanted a child," Ingrid said. "We'd been trying. It hadn't worked. When Rask came to us, he wasn't offering a normal adoption. He was asking us to take a responsibility. He was very clear about that. He said the boy's safety depended on our ability to never look back." "Did you know I had a sister?" Ingrid's composure held, but barely. She pressed the folded napkin flat against the table with both hands. We were told there was another child. A girl. We were told she would be placed with a different family, under a different name. We were told the two children must never be connected, that connecting them would create a pattern that could be traced. By whom? He used the words, hostile state services. Ingrid's voice dropped. I understood that to mean Russian intelligence, though he never said it explicitly. Elliot looked at Thomas. What about you? What did you know? Thomas leaned forward. His elbows rested on his knees, his hands clasped between them. The posture of a man assembling something difficult. I knew what Ingrid knew. I handled some of the practical arrangements. The identity documents, the registration, the medical records. Rask walked me through what needed to change. Birth date was kept the same. Name was completely replaced. The original records were sealed. I made sure the paperwork was clean. You're an engineer. I'm a man who knows how to read documents and follow instructions precisely. Were you ever going to tell me? Thomas's hands tightened. The knuckles whitened. Rask said we should tell you if the danger returned. Those were his words. If the danger returns, tell him enough to move. If they come for him, tell him everything. And when exactly did you plan to decide the danger had returned? Thomas looked at Elliot. The silence between them expanded until it filled the small cafe, pushing past the other tables, the hiss of the coffee machine, the murmur of other conversations that had nothing to do with sealed identities and murdered archivists. I don't know, Thomas said. The admission was bare. No justification, no legal framing, no appeal to protective intention. Just the raw, helpless truth of a man who had spent 27 years waiting for a moment he had no protocol for. You kept a box, Elliot said. A locked metal box. Hidden. Thomas sat up straight. How do you know about that? Because someone who knows more about my life than I do told me it existed. Where is it? Thomas reached into his coat. From the inside pocket, he withdrew a key. Small, brass, unremarkable. The box is in the storage unit under our building. Compartment 14. It's behind the Christmas decorations, inside a toolbox marked Archive. I haven't opened it in 12 years. What's inside?
Your partial birth record. An old photograph of you as an infant. A note from Rask. A reference to the name you just asked me about. Mikhail Henrik Nikolaisen. Thomas set the key on the table between them. And a small object, wrapped in cloth. Rask said it came from your biological mother. Elliot looked at the key. It was the kind of key that opened a padlock on a garden shed or a filing cabinet. Something domestic. Something ordinary. Something you could carry in your pocket for 3 decades without anyone asking what it unlocked. Did you ever want to open it? Elliot asked. Every day, Thomas said. The answer surprised Elliot. He'd expected deflection or silence. Thomas was not a man who spoke about want. He was a man who spoke about plans, schedules, specifications, and deadlines. Want was something other people indulged in. Every day, Thomas repeated. Every time you came home from school with questions about where you were born. Every time you asked why you didn't look like the other kids in the neighborhood. Every time you left for your military deployment, and I stood in the kitchen wondering if someone on the other side of the world knew your real name and was going to find you because of it. Ingrid put her hand on Thomas's arm. But I didn't open it, Thomas said. Because Rask told me that the box was a last resort. That opening it before the danger returned would be an indulgence. And that indulgence in this situation could kill you. Elliot picked up the key. It was warm from his father's pocket. He turned it over once and put it in his own. You said Rask mentioned a small object from my biological mother. Do you know what it is? No. I kept my word. I didn't open the sealed items. Ingrid spoke. I held it once, through the cloth. It felt like a pendant or a small cross. Metal. Cold. The silver Orthodox cross they'd found in Rask's apartment. AM 1918. Elliot's mind connected it instantly. The object in the box might be a twin piece, or something from the same source. Two halves of something split across two families, the way two children had been split. There's one more thing, Elliot said. The girl. My sister. Her name was Sophia Anna Nikolaisen. She was raised by a family called Hunt. She goes by Riley now. She's a geopolitical risk consultant. She's smart, she's stubborn, and she's as angry as I am. I've been with her for the last 5 days. Ingrid's eyes filled. She pressed the heel of her hand against her mouth, hard enough that Elliot could see the blood leave her knuckles. You found each other, she said through her fingers. We were summoned to the same basement on the same night, and found Henrik Rask dead on the floor. That's how we found each other. The sentence hung in the air between them. A statement of fact so laced with failure that it needed no elaboration. Thomas looked at the table, at his hands, at the space where the key had been. Is she all right? Ingrid asked. She's surviving. We both are. What do you need from us? I need the box. I need you to go to the storage unit, retrieve it, and bring it to an address I'll give you. Bring the original documents. Keep nothing behind. I don't want you holding material that could make you a target. Thomas nodded. The motion was immediate, decisive. The response of a man who had been waiting for operational instructions, even if he didn't know that was what he'd been waiting for. And after? Ingrid asked. What happens after? Elliot looked at his mother, at the lines around her eyes that he'd watched deepen over years without understanding the weight behind them, at the hands that had taught him to hold a compass, tie a knot, check a wound, pack a bag. Hands that had prepared him, quietly and constantly, for a danger she'd never named. You taught me to stay calm, he said. You taught me to notice my surroundings, to keep documents safe, to trust slowly, to leave quickly if something felt wrong. He paused. I thought you were just careful. I thought that was personality. It was love, Ingrid said. It was preparation for something you never told me about. It was both. Elliot leaned back in his chair. The wood groaned. Outside, the clouds had thinned enough to let a bar of pale afternoon light cross the floor. You're right, he said. It was both. And that's the part I don't know how to carry yet. Ingrid reached across the table. Elliot let her take his hand. Her grip was fierce, tighter than he'd felt since he was a boy. Bring the box to the address I write down, Elliot said. Leave it with the front desk. Don't wait. Don't call. And don't go back to the apartment tonight. Stay somewhere else. A hotel, a friend's house, anywhere that isn't connected to your usual patterns. You think they're watching us, Thomas said. I think they've been watching all of us for longer than any of us realized. Elliot wrote the hotel address on a napkin. He slid it across the table to Thomas. Room 214. Sealed package. My name won't be on it. Use the word trygg if anyone at the desk asks for a reference. Thomas took the napkin, read it, and put it in his wallet. Ingrid still held Elliot's hand. He looked at her, at the woman who had raised him, shaped him, loved him, and lied to him in equal measure. The woman who had said "Vær trygg" every day of his life, not as a habit but as a prayer to a god of operational security she'd never fully understood. "I love you, Mom," he said. "Both of you. That hasn't changed." He withdrew his hand. But everything else has. He stood, picked up the coffee he'd never tasted, set it back down. "Stay safe," he said. "I'll be in touch when I can." He walked to the door. His reflection crossed the glass as he pushed it open. A tall man in borrowed clothes, carrying a brass key that unlocked 27 years of silence. He did not look back. Riley was waiting in the Volvo on a side street 300 meters from the cafe. The engine was off. The windows were spotted with rain. She watched Elliot approach in the side mirror, his stride long and even, his face composed in a way that she was beginning to recognize as the architecture he built around difficult emotions. He opened the passenger door and got in. Closed it. Sat. Neither spoke for a moment. "How did it go?" Riley asked. "My name was Mikael Henrik Nikolaisen." The confirmation settled between them. The second half of something that had been broken apart before either of them could form a memory. "Mine was Sophia Anna Nikolaisen," Riley said. Elliot nodded. His eyes were on the dashboard but focused somewhere much farther away. "They knew," he said. "Both of them. My mother, my father. They knew I was adopted under a sealed identity. They knew about Rask. They knew there was a girl who had to be kept separate from me. They knew the threat was Russian. They knew enough to prepare me for danger without ever telling me what the danger was." "Same," Riley said. "My mother broke when I asked about the sibling. She knew. She always knew. My father kept a locked box in storage for 27 years. Never opened it. Birth records, a note from Rask, a photograph, and something from our biological mother. My father has a locked drawer in his office. Sealed adoption papers, correspondence, a partial birth record, File 17 reference." They sat with it. The rain picked up, drumming on the Volvo's roof in a steady rhythm that filled the silence between them. "They're bringing the documents to the hotel," Elliot said. "Both sets." "I told my parents the same thing. Room 214. Elliot turned his head and looked at her. "What did your father say when you asked about the lie?" Riley's jaw tightened. "He said he chose to keep me alive. I told him that wasn't the same as keeping me in the dark." He couldn't disagree. "My father said he didn't know when he would have told me. Just didn't know. No plan, no threshold. 27 years of carrying a sealed box and no plan for when to open it. That's almost worse than having a reason." "It is worse." Riley gripped the steering wheel, though the car was stationary. Her knuckles whitened against the leather. "They all loved us," she said. "I believe that. My mother was crying. My father looked like someone had dismantled the foundation of a building he'd spent his career constructing. They weren't performing. They were in pain. I know. But they watched us grow up inside a lie they helped build. They answered our questions about our childhoods with half-truths and subject changes. They taught us to be strong and independent because they were afraid someone might come for us, and they dressed that fear up as parenting.
Every lesson, every discipline, every push towards self-reliance. It wasn't just love. It was contingency planning. Elliot was quiet. He thought about the key in his pocket, about Ingrid's hand gripping his across the table, about Thomas saying every day with a rawness that had startled them both. "My mother said it was both," he said. "Love and preparation. She said it was both." She's right, and that's what makes it so hard to forgive. They let the rain fill the space between thoughts. A cyclist passed, hunched under a yellow slicker. "Do you remember anything?" Elliot asked. "From before, from being 14 months old." "No." "Neither do I. But I remember my mother checking the locks every night before bed. I remember her always knowing where every member of the family was in the house. I remember my father teaching me to argue, to think 3 steps ahead, to never accept a situation at face value." Riley paused. "I thought those were just the traits of educated, careful Norwegian parents. I didn't know they were operating procedures." "My mother taught me to pack a bag in 5 minutes," Elliot said. "To keep my passport in the same drawer as my phone charger, to memorize the address of wherever I was staying. I thought it was army-adjacent parenting. Practical. Norwegian." "It was Rask-adjacent parenting." "Yes." Another silence. Riley started the engine. The Volvo rumbled to life, the heater pushing warm air through the vents. "We have 2 sets of birth records now," she said. 2 confirmations of our original names. 2 independent accounts of the adoption process. 2 families who received instructions from the same man. Both told the same story. Separated children, sealed identities, Russian threat. Both told to never look for the other child. Both kept in partial ignorance so that neither family could reconstruct the full picture alone. Elliot looked at her. "Katerina said the northern table split the evidence across multiple custodians. That principle wasn't just applied to archives and safe houses. It was applied to our families." Riley pulled out of the parking space and turned the Volvo downhill, toward the main road. "Our parents didn't create the conspiracy," she said, "but they held its edges in place. They were the frame around a picture they chose not to look at." "Not chose," Elliot said. "We're told not to. At some point, obedience becomes a choice." She drove. The road wound through residential streets, past wooden houses with lit windows and children's bicycles leaning against fences. The ordinary architecture of lives built on foundations that nobody questioned. "Where are we going?" Elliot asked. "Back to the safe house. We wait for the documents. Then we figure out what File 17 actually contains, and whether any of it can keep us alive." Elliot watched the houses pass, each one a sealed container of someone's history, each one holding secrets of varying size and consequence: marital, financial, medical, personal. The difference was that most secrets didn't have operational code names and Russian kernels attached to them. "Riley." "What?" "When we pick up those records, when we hold our birth names in our hands and read the adoption papers our parents signed, it's going to change the way we think about everything that came before." "I know. Not just the facts, the feeling. Every memory of childhood, every birthday, every holiday, every photograph on the wall. All of it gets reframed." Riley kept her eyes on the road. Her hands were steady on the wheel, but her voice carried an edge that wasn't anger. It was something rawer. "I've already started." They drove north in silence. Behind them, in 2 different locations in Holmenkollen, 4 people who had loved and lied in equal measure sat with the wreckage of conversations they had spent decades avoiding. Marianne Hunt folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Eric Hunt drove to his office on Drammensveien, with both hands on the wheel, and his mind on a locked drawer he was about to open for the first time. Ingrid Harper pressed her forehead to the cafe window and watched the street where her son had walked away. Thomas Harper sat with his hands between his knees and the word Trygg in his wallet, and the absence of a brass key in his coat pocket. None of them called anyone. None of them went home. None of them pretended the structure they'd maintained for 27 years was still standing. The Volvo disappeared around the bend. The rain continued. Oslo went about its business, indifferent to the fact that 2 ordinary families had just fractured along fault lines laid down before their children could speak. The documents arrived at the hotel by early evening. Elliot retrieved them. 2 sealed packages at the front desk, both marked for room 214. He carried them upstairs to a room Riley had booked under a name from the emergency supplies. Cash payment, no identification beyond what was required. The room was small, clean, and anonymous. 2 beds, a desk, a window overlooking the parking lot. The kind of room where nothing memorable was supposed to happen.
Riley spread the contents on the desk. 2 sets, 2 lives. From the Hunts, sealed adoption papers bearing the signature of Eric Hunt and a family court stamp. A partial birth record listing the name Sophia Anna Nikolaisen, born 1999, Oslo. 3 pages of typed correspondence from Henrik Rask to Eric Hunt, dated across several years, each marked private and confidential. A handwritten note in Rask's precise script referencing File 17, subject R, and the instruction must never be publicly connected to subject E. A small silver pendant wrapped in tissue, a delicate thing, tarnished and old, with a faint inscription Riley couldn't read without magnification. From the Harpers, a partial birth record listing the name Mikael Henrik Nikolaisen, born 1999, Oslo. A photograph of a baby wrapped in a white blanket, dark eyes open and unfocused, held by hands that were cut off at the frame's edge. A note from Rask in the same handwriting, referencing File 17, subject E, and the phrase, "If he asks, tell him enough. If they come, tell him everything." A fragment of an older document in Russian, yellowed and brittle, with a faded, double-headed eagle watermark barely visible against the light. And something wrapped in cloth at the bottom of the box, small, metallic, cold. Elliot unwrapped it. A silver Orthodox cross, smaller than the one they'd found in Rask's apartment, but similar in style. No inscription visible on the face. He turned it over. On the back, scratched into the metal with something sharp and thin, were 3 letters. M-H-N. His initials. His original initials. Scratched into a cross by someone, his biological mother, he thought, who wanted him to carry a piece of his real name, even if he never learned the rest. Riley picked up the pendant from her own set. She held it to the desk lamp. The inscription was tiny, almost invisible, etched into the metal with the same crude precision. S-A-N. They set the 2 objects side by side on the desk. A cross and a pendant. A brother and a sister. 2 pieces of the same origin, separated by the same hands that had written the same letters
to 2 different families, instructing them to love these children and never tell them the truth. "There it is," Riley said. Elliot looked at the desk, at the documents, the photographs, the fragments of Russian text, the old metal carrying old initials. 2 families, he said. 2 sets of lies. Same architect. Rask built the whole thing. The legal framework, the identity changes, the information compartmentalization. He ran our lives like an archival system. Every piece filed separately. Every custodian given just enough to maintain their section without understanding the whole. And now he's dead, and the index is stolen, and we're sitting in a hotel room with the only copies of our own names. Riley gathered the documents carefully, stacking them in order. Birth records first, adoption papers second, Rask's correspondence third, personal objects last. She placed them in the room's small safe and set a code. "Our parents didn't create this," she said. "They were recruited into it. Given roles, given scripts, given children. But they stayed in character for 27 years. Because the alternative terrified them." Elliot sat on the edge of the bed. The springs creaked under his weight. "My mother once told me that the most important thing in life was to know where you stood," he said. "She meant it literally. Know the ground beneath your feet. Know the exits. Know the weather. Know the weight of what you're carrying." He looked at the safe. She was talking about this. She was always talking about this. Riley sat on the other bed, across from him. The desk lamp threw their shadows long against the wall. "The betrayal isn't that they didn't love us," she said. "The betrayal is that they loved us inside a lie. They gave us everything: safety, education, discipline, affection, and all of it sat on a foundation they knew was false. They raised us to be strong and smart and capable, and the reason they did it was because they were afraid the truth would one day come hunting for us. And it did. And it did." They sat across from each other in the anonymous room. 2 people carrying 2 names each. 2 childhoods rewritten. 2 families broken open by the same dead man's instructions. The rain had stopped. The parking lot lights hummed orange through the window. Somewhere in the city below, 4 parents were spending the night in places that weren't home, following instructions given by children who had never given them instructions before. "We leave at first light," Riley said. "Katerina's documents show 6 evidence locations. The baptismal record in Porvoo is the most critical. If Volkov's people get there first, the strongest proof of the bloodline disappears." "Porvoo," Elliot said. "Finland."
He nodded. He reached into his pocket and set the brass key Thomas had given him on the bedside table. It sat there, small and plain, beside the lamp. "I asked my father if he was ever going to tell me," Elliot said. "He said he didn't know. Just didn't know." He looked at Riley. "Yours?" "He said he chose to keep me alive. I told him that wasn't the same thing." She paused. He didn't argue. Good lawyer. Terrible father, in that one way. Just that one way. Riley reached across the gap between the beds and held out her hand. Elliot looked at it. The gesture was simple, not sentimental. The gesture of someone offering a fixed point in a shifting landscape. He took it. Her grip was firm. His was steady.
They held on for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then Riley let go, switched off the lamp, and lay back on the bed. "First light," she said. "First light," he said. The room went dark. Outside, Oslo breathed through its nighttime rhythms. Buses, rain drains, distant sirens, the hum of a city that did not know 2 of its ordinary citizens had just received the first complete proof of their stolen names. The documents sat in the safe, the crosses and pendant resting on tissue paper, the scratched initials catching no light at all. 2 children, separated at 13 and 14 months. 2 families, recruited into silence. 2 lives, constructed with love and deception in equal measure. The conspiracy didn't begin with honest Russia. It didn't begin with the FSB or File 17 or the Table of Witnesses. It began in 2 Norwegian homes where good people made a choice to protect children by lying to them, and then couldn't find the way back to the truth. Elliot listened to Riley's breathing slow. He stayed awake. He watched the ceiling. He thought about the key on the bedside table, and the cross with his initials, and the sound his mother made when she said, "That's you. That was your name." He did not sleep for a long time.
The story continues in the next chapter, so make sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with fellow book lovers.